Yes.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. I'm Jerry Williams. I
Hi, Jerry.
own two really good radio stations here in town,
Yep.
and I'm having some issues with getting customers to understand what I say a lot. My programming is targeted to the African American community,
Yeah.
and I probably spend a little too much time focusing on that rather than focusing on how much money they spend in the community.
When you say I spend too much time focusing on that, do you mean in your conversations with the media buyers?
Maybe in my mind more than with the media buyers, but I actually have the conversation with the media buyers also, or the advertisers, and I don't think that they value the African American dollar as much as I would like to see.
Right. And you said that phrase before, and that thinking is probably going to be troublesome for you. So
Right.
I think what's more accurate is they don't suspect that your listeners are going to spend as much, which is different than not valuing the African American dollar. I know it's a similar idea, but it is different, because if you can start to show metrics and measurements about how much is spent, and start to target the kind of media buyers who have products that they believe your audience will really respond to, then it'll start to be an asset, not a hindrance.
Right.
Also, the reason why the online budgets for advertising have continued to soar and the traditional media budgets have continued to drop is measurement, right? It's that satisfaction or the illusion of control that I know I spent $1 here and I know what happened. And the more that you can offer either direct measurement or a proxy for direct measurement to those buyers, the more value you can provide. And there's lots and lots of ways you can provide indirect measurement, including if you have advertisers that are driving towards retail, you just need a relationship with the management of those retail stores and do tests where you run something on a Friday and you see what happens on that weekend, and then the next weekend don't run it. And then if you can start to measure delta in foot traffic at key big box retail outlets or things like that, then you can start to make claims in your conversations with media buyers. Hey, I know that we affected this percentage increase in foot traffic at these big box retailers when they ran this campaign. I can't, of course, promise the same results for you because your content might suck, but I know that we can deliver that if you deliver to us a message. Another thing is I would consider alternative ways of getting paid. I would consider pay per action, stuff like that, where you're getting paid actually based on opt-ins or actions or something that's happening on the internet. So I'd consider that. And I just feel like radio is due for a revolution in how it thinks of itself. The same way newspapers went from a delivery of print to an online subscription. I think there's a revolution available, and if you sense it coming, it's always a better strategy to lead the charge, lead and push the envelope and make the change happen faster than to be in a position of trying to slow down the change. Do you know what I mean?
We're doing all the things to stay ahead of the curve. Once again, a problem that I'm running into is with advertisers not wanting to change.
Yeah.
Not even wanting to have the conversation about changing, getting in to see more advertisers. I mean, we've got the best screeners in the world in Alexandria. For some reason, they have been trained. I had one guy that to tell his lady, tell him he's not here. And she came back, she said, well, he said he's not here. So it's those kinds of things that I've got to figure out how to overcome.
Yeah, that seems like a training issue right there, but if you step outside of the role, outside of the identity that you think that you're supposed to be playing,
okay,
and you figure out what do the advertisers really want, and how can you use your unique perspective, assets, and capabilities to deliver that. In another, large market radio and small market radio work very differently. And however, small market radio works fairly similarly from market to market in a region. I wonder if you could figure out how to do some kind of aggregate deal with a bunch of other small markets and deliver to a potential media buyer a huge volume of listenership because you're aggregating a bunch of small markets. Kind of like own the long tail of radio in the South or in Bible Belt or in the country. And just be the one who has all those relationships, and you kind of become an intermediary for the stations that aren't yours. Because you know what content's going to work, you know when to put it on, you know what I mean? You know things that the national media guys might not be as savvy about. And if you could take that, you know, not the Procter & Gamble's, not the Madison Avenue budgets, but that middle SEM budget, yeah. Another thing is, a lot of people want to test on radio. And if you could create a test program that was super appealing, you could be the test market for new products. You know, for example, you could say, you can make a deal where they use you as a test market, and you'll give them the test media for free if they commit to a certain buy, and they only commit to that buy if the performance is above a certain metric. Right? If you did something like that, you'd be the test market for every as seen on TV radio ad in the world. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think those kinds of things where you extend yourself a little bit, you're more generous than you thought you could in the front end in order to build a relationship, because you're giving them what they really want. They don't want to screw you out of the money, but they don't want to risk on a test. They don't want to spend money they don't think they're going to get back. As soon as they know they're getting it back, then they're ready to spend the money. And then, in fact, you combine those two ideas. You could give them free tests up front, and then a way of rolling out to the aggregate small market radio, just with you as the relationship. Not you, though.
Not you. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Hi there.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, good.
My name is Jim White.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, Brian. I have a service business. I do pressure washing.
Pressure washing.
Right. When I first got into it, it was whoever needed pressure washing. And as I went down the road, I changed my focus to more of a commercial base for two reasons. One, there's a little bit more profitability in it versus a residential. And it was also not as seasonal. And one of the issues we've been running into is the perception people have about that type of service being a very seasonal type of business. So it's a little bit of a roller coaster ride. So I'm trying to flatten that out a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I'm struggling with that, trying to get that under control and what to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second half is that a lot of the stuff you're saying today, I'm a typical entrepreneur about the challenges and getting stuck in some of these spots. How do we keep on, get the perception into the business and then just keep pushing those concepts and integrate them into the business so now they become a natural part of the business? I mean, we've learned a lot today.
Yeah.
How do we get that incorporated and integrated into it on a daily basis so we do get that sustainability and growth like what I'm trying to do with that seasonal?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because of course we have products that help people do exactly that. In all seriousness, we felt that, Jennifer and I felt that to be a major pain point for entrepreneurs. You come to a seminar like this, you learn awesome information, You may even learn a framework in which to organize that information like we did today. And it wasn't just information, but it was also a framework to know when that information is relevant to you. But then, tomorrow you go back and you've got customers complaining and you got employees not showing up. You got all of this stuff that happens, and then you're just dealing with that. And this thing goes away. Because, I don't know, when you get exposed to a new concept that's just outside of your mindset, it's like your mind can't fully, like sometimes the expression is used, get your mind around it. You can't wrap it totally. You can feel that it's valuable and it makes sense while it's being said, but trying to explain it or bring it just needs more exposure. And so we created a variety of programs for entrepreneurs to help them do that and to do it in community with each other. I think the best way of keeping it alive is to have an advisory group, an advisory board, and I think BAS serves some of that role here. Because if you have a group of people who are all committed to using that same framework in order to advance all their businesses, it's going to be way easier for you to see how to apply it to them and for them to see how to apply it to you than for you to look in the mirror every day. So that's why we built our programs around building communities of advisory groups of 4 or 5 entrepreneurs, larger groups of 100, and beyond that. And depending on where you are revenue-wise, we have a group for entrepreneurs with $1 million business or more, and which is a Platinum Mastermind program for a year. It starts in March. And then if either you can't do that or you're not quite at that level, we have programs starting at $3,000 for 6 months, which tell you exactly what you need to do next. It starts with this free survey, and then gives you the step-by-step, and then you just log in and do the next thing it says to do. Just keep doing it, and it forces you to act inside the framework until the framework becomes a part of you and part of your business. We found that to be incredibly successful for people, really helping them change the game. So didn't mean to be so self-promotional in that answer, but the option that you have that doesn't involve paying us a little bit of money is just get together in a community with people, 4, 5, 6 people, and start with material in front of you. I was asked to provide these slides, which I'm happy to do. I'm going to make sure that the folks at BAS have it. You can get them. Have the material in front of you and just work it together, meet regularly. Of course, we'd love to help you do that, and we can also do it every time.
What about that perception issue with trying to change customers' perception issue, especially when it's like a cycle sale?
Well, what if you went the other way and made it even more seasonal? Instead of trying to fight the seasonal and flatten it out, what if you made it even more seasonal so that you do a little price increase in the high season, and you constrict the availability so that it's only available certain months and they have to get it done or else they can't get it done. And you just make it pressure washing season so everybody's getting pressure washing. They know that it's pressure washing season, they got to get it done now. And then you build a structure where you drop your costs almost to nothing in the off season so that you don't have that. A lot of companies, a lot of businesses that have that seasonality choose other businesses which have the opposite seasonality and invest in both so that they can take their overhead and their administrative staff and swing between the two. And then just the fulfillment is more contract labor. So that would be 2 ideas. I don't know if that helped you. Anytime you're fighting, like I want people to want to pressure wash when it's raining, that's hard. And that's changing customer behavior too much. So that's the approach I would take.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
I'm Bryan Pearson, and we make pharmacy automation equipment. We're a manufacturer. It's a very niche market. We're going after primarily hospitals and long-term care pharmacies.
Yes.
Primarily. One of our, we have lots of challenges, but one of our challenges, toughest challenges is that we have a very long sales cycle.
Yeah.
Because it's capital equipment. And we have to get into market to very busy pharmacists, directors of pharmacy, and it's very difficult for us to get through to them. We're the small guy. We can't go hire the big sales force to go out and call them in person. So we're relying on doing things via the web and trade shows, trade advertising, those kinds of things. I would like to increase our digital media presence to target those. Haven't really found a good way, what you said earlier about people don't want information.
Yeah, they
If they
don't.
want to participate, so thinking along that lines, I'm trying to think how we can attract those decision makers who would, at least have a way to know about us.
You gotta find out what the biggest problem for the decision makers is. And I don't know what it is for them, but let's pretend, let's have a fantasy for a minute, that instead of pharmacies, your customer were companies that own pressure washers, right?
Okay.
And you're selling them capital equipment. So the biggest problem they have is the seasonality. So
Right.
if you could, for example, lease equipment to them where the lease payments were curved the way the seasons were, then you're solving a problem for them. Does that make sense?
Right.
There is an allegory to that for the pharmacies. I don't know what it is. I don't know that industry well. I apologize. But there are things that they want that feel to them to be insurmountable. And they're insurmountable because they're a pharmacy, but they're not insurmountable for you. If you can figure out how to solve the problem, it doesn't even have to relate specifically to your product. I worked with one of the architects who built many of the casinos in Las Vegas, including the Trump Towers and Caesars and Mirage and a couple of the Wynn hotels. And so this is an architect who's billing $80 million a year. And his customers were the owners, and in the economic downturn, the owner's biggest problem is that the financing was all suddenly drying up. They would have projects which were approved for $6 billion. They'd start to build them, and then $4 billion of the $6 billion would go away in credit as they were constructing, and they'd already laid concrete. And when you're building a $6 billion building, it sucks to run out of money. You got to go and say, hey, do you have an extra $6 billion? Because I ran out. So their biggest problem was that these funding sources were drying up. They were unreliable. So with the architect, and so they were obviously hesitant about hiring any architects. So what my recommendation to them was to create a conference, which and have all the top bankers that fund casinos as their guests, and lead a conference on funding stability in Las Vegas for capital projects, and invite all the owners of all the casinos to come, be in the audience, and have the best speakers from all the banks you possibly can, hedge funds, everybody you can get, and just host it and go. And so that's what he did. He said, hey, I'm such and such architect. Thanks for coming. And let's have a discussion. He did a kind of open forum so people could participate, lots of Q&A. And so he was providing value, you understand, to the customers where they hurt most. And the number, I think he got 6 or 7 projects from that day. And a project for him could be a $500,000 to $1 million fee. Because they were hemming and hawing about doing the project, but once they got the information about funding stability, they felt more confident. And then, since you were the one in a conversation and we're having dinner, you should do it. It's proximity. So that's just an example of solving a customer problem which really has nothing to do with your product, but which is it's in your ecosystem. And because this guy had been an architect for years and years and years and knew all the bankers because of all the previous projects, he was able to call in some personal favors and get them to come and talk. Make sense?
That makes sense.
So
You solve their problems and make it multi-nodal.
Exactly. Correct. Which you can do, and in that case, just as a marketing thing. I mean, it wasn't his business. He didn't make any money. He didn't charge for it. Right? It was just an expense. It cost him whatever, $60,000 for the day. Or you could actually build it into the business, into how you're delivering value on an ongoing basis.
I'll chew on that.
I would also say one more thing. Just I've spoken to you, and I spoke to someone I think who works with you briefly.
Yes.
And you're not focused enough, is my feedback. For the size company you are, you're trying to do too much. You want to figure out which part of the puzzle do you do best, and see if you can only do that for your future contracts. And it's counterintuitive because you're going to be doing less for each customer, but I think you're going to grow much more quickly. And once you're grown very quickly and you have a wide customer base, you can start to get back some of that other business. And I have a hunch that your expertise is more around the systems more around software, more around the systems, and less around the hardware.
Product focused, I am.
Yeah, but it's less hardware based, right?
Yes.
And more so, but you're doing a lot of work in the hardware space. So you might release that. That's what I'm saying. And it's hard because you feel like you're giving up profit, but that what you get back for giving up that profit is your attention and focus. Remember, back to the strengths and weaknesses in the innovation space, because you're never going to beat Dell on the hardware side, right?
Right.
But you absolutely could be the best software provider and then some, particularly if you had more of your bandwidth trying to solve those problems instead of trying to deal with hardware nonsense. So,
Thank you.
just my feedback.
Good afternoon, I'm Relda Doings, and I wanted to refer back to something that you said earlier this morning about when Southern Railroad became Sprint.
Yeah.
And about evaluating what was important and starting with a whiteboard, basically, just.
Yeah, what you got?
sky's the limit.
Yeah, totally.
And it's a two-pronged question. I work for a family-owned, family-run company, third generation, 63 years old.
Are you
Heavy
the
highway
family?
construction, no.
Okay.
Heavy highway construction, et cetera. But also my question is several of us are on boards, various nonprofits, church boards, chamber of commerce, et cetera.
Right.
And as we step back and do this kind of internal SWOT analysis of what is important, what the future holds, what our strengths are, especially, and now I'm going to switch back and go back to the company that I work for. You know, if we go in and start having a conversation about we're not going to be an infrastructure, transportation, heavy highway anymore, we've gone to Mars all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems, it's a great story that you told, and it makes a lot of sense of how that happened. But that process from becoming the railroad to
Yeah.
fiber optic provider is quite a stretch. So two-pronged from the company standpoint, and then also from some of the organizations and community and civic things. That's my question.
Thank you.
In a very roundabout way.
No, it's great. So, you got to make it safe to have a conversation first. And I think one of the leadership faux pas that we fall into often is that we just launch into the conversation without making it safe first. In fact, if you're married, you know that you've done that, where you just start the conversation, you didn't make the conversation safe first, and then your spouse is freaking out before and then you're backpedaling, and then you didn't get to have the conversation you wanted. If you've ever been the one to bring up that you think you want to move to a different state, like that kind of stuff, right? So the way to do that is you say, well, listen, I want to have a conversation where we just dream a little bit and we detach from reality. I want to detach from obligation, from maintenance, and from concern, and just have a make-believe conversation. And the reason why I want to do that is because I think that some of the ideas that could come out of that conversation, we might want to bring back into reality. We might want to take one of the things that we say and then learn about it. Kind of like, NASA went to space and we got Velcro. So it's not that I think we should go to space, but there might be some Velcro for us in this conversation. And I just want to, let's have that exploratory deal. So let's make an agreement. Here are the ground rules. We're going to talk for an hour about it. And we're not going to say yeah, but anything. And we're going to imagine that we have no liabilities or obligations. That we just have opportunity and assets. And then you just start to pose a series of thought experiments. So, what are our greatest assets? And of all of the problems that we're aware of, which are the ones we care most about? And if you were going to apply those assets to those problems that we care about, what would be ways that could happen? Yeah, but we're in a transportation company. No. We agree, no yeah buts. This is not the reality. This is space. This is not the Velcro. We don't know whether there's going to be any Velcro here. I just want to have the conversation. And if you can do anything and you can, wave a magic wand, what's your heart of hearts want most? Let's find out. And then once all that's on the table, then you close the conversation. And my advice is that you record it or get some kind of a notation of what was said, and don't launch into the trying to make any good from it right away. In other words, let that meeting be over, go away, and you think about it, you review the notes, and then you can come up with a proposal which you think is actually measured. So I was thinking about that conversation we had the other day, and there's some crazy ideas, and I know that we're not going to do any of them. However, it got me thinking, what if we were to add this service, which would lead us in just a little bit in that direction? What would that be like if we did that? You know what I mean? So you can present it. And also you know where all the proverbial bodies are buried, because you know which emotional hot buttons for the people in the room, and you can avoid tripping them unnecessarily. If you know that one of the issues you want to move, and your wife wants to live near her parents, you know what to say. You know not to say, hey, so the first thing I was thinking is move as far away from your parents as possible. So that's a plus. You learn where all that is, and you say, let's have a discussion. Like, what if it was just you and me, and we had no other relationships to worry about? No parents, no kids, no friends. It was just you and me, and we didn't have to have jobs. Where do you want to live? And then you say, oh, I want to live, whatever, in the Cayman Islands. You say, okay, and then you can say, well, I don't think we're going to live in the Cayman Islands, but there is a beach property, which is just an hour further away from your parents' house than we are now. And why don't we go look at it? It's not the islands, but it kind of gives us a little bit of that feeling. And that's moving as far as you can in the direction of your desire without being irresponsible to your current responsibilities. Is that helpful?
Very much, yes.
So that's how you have that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Peter Rodich. I own a software company here. One of the products I launched about 10 years ago was an open source product, and it's being used in over 175 countries, downloaded over 1 million times, 400 to 700 downloads a day, and this is a free product.
Yeah.
So I'm working on an idea of converting it to a SaaS product, software as a service. And I was wondering if you have some ideas on other software businesses that have gone through the process of free to pay product.
Yeah, I do. Not the least of which was my client LinkedIn, which was free for many years. And no, for the first 3 years they had no pro product. But do you get their email address when they download it?
Not at the moment, but I have a mailing list, and I get
can you
good
stop
sign
that
up rates.
Can you today go change that so that you get their email address when they download the product?
That's been an idea that's been thrown around, and I can do that.
Yeah, do it. Okay. All right. That's the first thing. Well, it's just like when you live next to a river of gold, you want to reach down and cut every now and again. So first of all, get the email address, because that list is incredibly valuable even if they never buy from you. And then you want to not just get their email address, do that first, but as soon as possible, even if the open source version, I would build in some reporting that reports back to you when it was installed, how it was installed, as much as you can about the data that they've got, as much as you can do in terms of getting reporting back from them without the customer feeling like they're being invasive. You know what I mean?
Without being an NSA kind of?
Yeah, exactly. You said it. Certainly you want to know if it was installed and maybe number of calls or something, so you know if it's being used. And you could, since it's open source, you could expose back to them the data that they're getting, or that you're getting, so that they know exactly what you're seeing and have a report of it too. Because you need some market intelligence in order for you to make this change, and you're a little bit flying blind. Now, that being said, we talked about one thing, which is an offer that you can make to the community that's installed the free version, which gives them some additional value because they've used your software. and we talked a little bit earlier, the software is a ticketing system for support. And one of the problems that almost every company has and hasn't solved yet is that they're getting support calls on the same issue, but somehow that information never makes it into the product roadmap to get fixed so that they stop getting support calls. People usually try to fix customer support metrics by hiring more customer support people. That's the typical metric. Like, you want support calls to be shorter, so you hire more customer support people, versus fixing the product so people don't have to call in the first place, or making it so easy to use that you don't need a manual, or those kinds of things, right? So if you can give some of that business intelligence, some of that recommendations, and charge money for those, that would be one place to start. And then the other is, do you know which kinds of businesses are the ones that are more likely to download your thing?
Yeah, ticketing systems usually go from small businesses, 1 or 2 people, to Fortune 500 companies. We have contractor for Microsoft, for example, using the system. A couple of big Fortune 500 companies using as a part of their division using the free product. And initially I used to monetize using Google Ads and a little bit of commercial support and installation consulting kind of deal. So my thinking is to move away from that and do into subscription-based kind of model.
Yes. To move away from that.
How do you do that?
Oh, so you have to come up with one feature which everybody wants, which isn't in the free version, and only offer it on the SaaS version. All you need is one feature, and make sure it's the one everyone wants. Like, here, you can install this, but if you're selling a painting, don't make the feature the frame and the lighting and all this stuff surrounding it. Make it the juice, make it the good thing. So, for example, you have, for the free version of the ticketing system, you can use the ticketing software and track and do all of that. If we host it, it becomes real time. And you have, it enables real-time chat, real-time video, real-time voice. And it's all integrated. That's an example. So something like that, where it's not real-time if they host it, and it is real-time if you do.
So it sounds good. I guess one of the struggle we're having is we want to leverage the community to help us develop a multilingual version of the software, at the same time do the SaaS version. So
yeah,
we kind of worried about
those are at odds.
the community.
Yeah, so what he's saying is it's open source right now, which means that other people can improve it, right? Other people can work on it, and it gets better. And but if other people are working on it and getting better, then you can't own it. You can't put it behind your server and say, oh.
That's kind of a GPL license.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a matter of diamond and setting, where the diamond is the open source piece. But the setting, the container, is the SaaS. And so you have to figure out a feature for the container, which has real value to the customers. Have you sat down with like 10 of your biggest installations and asked them what value they get from the thing and what they wish it did?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of customer interviews and trying to figure out things, and some of them, they get a lot of value, some not, but we're trying to figure out what's the sweet spot and what we should focus on.
And have you asked them, like, hey, what's something that you would pay X dollars a month for, happily?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of features in terms of asking what would be more valuable for customers if that is by industry, and we've talked about maybe segmenting some of the software to be specific to an industry, which is something we're considering doing.
Considering doing or done?
No, we're considering doing it, as far as maybe building a version, say this is for doctor's office, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of tailoring the system to that.
Yes, yes. So it sounds to me like you're considering the right things to do, and what you need to do is do them. Yeah, and stop considering. Especially stop considering other things, and just do those things. Because if you choose a vertical, you interview the customer, you ask what they would pay for, and then you build that and you have them pay for it. I know that the Dalai Lama wouldn't approve, but But Dan Kennedy says that you're going to be a wealthy man if you do that. So that's what I would do.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right. And that wraps it up for me. I'm going to hop on a plane. It's really been fun to be here. I feel very welcomed by you guys, and it's been a pleasure to get to know some of you. As always, I wish you the best success and the most happiness. And make sure and fulfill yourselves and be happy.